Welcome to the Resilient Training Lab podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Resilient Training Lab podcast.
My name is Ryan Kalkowski here with my co-host Paul Milano, and today we're joined by Carlos Reyes, competitive strength athlete. So I'll let Carlos introduce himself and talk a little bit about him.
What's up, guys? Happy to be on the podcast. I just guess go over my history and training and then kind of tie it into my career. So I started lifting for sports in 2005. I was 13 years old. I got a gym membership for my birthday. And from day one, I just absolutely loved everything about it. It was felt like the first thing I could be really good at. I was never a great athlete, so I thought like this could kind of be my niche. So I took it pretty seriously from day one.
What kind of gym did you join?
I joined a Planet Fitness. But this was before they took all the free weights out.
Okay.
So Planet Fitness actually used to be legit. At least the one that I went to. There was a corner where there was some benches, squat racks, guys doing power cleans and stuff like that. They were really strong. So
Did you walk in there the strongest guy in the gym?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh my gosh, no. At that age, I had a very strong squat right away. Not the best technique, but pressing, I mean, I don't think I could bench 100 pounds, maybe 95 pounds for one.
Mm-hmm.
Lower, but other than that, I don't really remember my numbers from back then. But pressing, I was especially bad at. Very skinny, 130 pounds when I joined the gym.
Oh, yeah.
So today I'm 100 pounds heavier.
Absolutely sounds familiar. So beyond starting to train at Planet Fitness,
Yep.
when did you really start to make strength training your priority, right? Because you said you weren't very athletic. Did you play sports throughout high school?
I was playing sports in high school. I played football and track for 3 years. I started competing in strongman my sophomore year. And then by my senior year, I was so serious about it. I said, you know what, I'm going to quit all my sports senior year and kind of put all my eggs in one basket with this thing, and we'll see what happens.
So you quickly moved past Planet Fitness and
Yes.
started training a little more serious.
Yeah. And so I started lifting in 2005 there. In 2007 or 2008, I met a guy at Gold's Gym in New Haven. And he said, hey, so I do this strongman stuff with this guy, Derek Poundstone. Would you want to come and work out with us? And I was like, yeah, sure. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I end up going with him, and we go to this gym where there's stones, and Derek Poundstone was actually deadlifting a Honda Civic for 30 reps the minute that I walked in. And then the same day, he did a 200-something pound dumbbell for 13 reps in the gym. And I said, oh, man, this is what I want to do. This looks like a lot of fun. I'm never going to be like that guy, but what's the worst that happens if I try this? I signed up for my first contest a few months later. And for maybe 2 years straight, I was doing every contest I could get my hands on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Just
then
absolutely loved it.
how'd those contests go?
For the first year, I was horrendous. So there was really no option to compete as a teenager at that time. The shows were very small. Sport was not very popular. So I was always competing in the men's open, and I used to get killed.
You're competing against guys who are maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years older than you.
Oh, no, they're in the 30s, up to yeah, because the open is 18 to 39. So I was 16 years old competing against, grown men in their prime.
Right, and this is, 10 years ago?
This is about 10 years ago. 12 years ago now. This is 2008, yeah.
So sports come a long way since then. I know Derek Poundstone used to compete, and he was typically a lot leaner than a lot of the other guys, right?
Yeah, he was one of the new age guys that looked like a bodybuilder, and his pressing and overall athleticism at that time was really unheard of. So he was definitely a trailblazer in the sport.
Did you take a lot of little training nuggets away from learning with those guys?
You know what? It wasn't even so much training nuggets as just being in that atmosphere that was made training there so great. So, I mean, we could have up to 7 pros training on any given day. Mm-hmm. So I was allowed in the group, but people were kind of like, we don't care that you're 16 years old. The standard is here. If you can't meet the standard, if the frame is 550 empty and we're warming up on it, if you can't do the 550 frame, well, I guess you have to do something else. We're not making accommodations for you.
Right. So.
Always people going to nationals every year. It was just a very high standard, and I felt like I had to meet it as quickly as I could.
There was a lot of pro strongman that came out of that group.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had Derek Poundstone was the most famous of them. Dave Mahalov was a 105 kilogram America's Strongest Man. He was a middleweight pro. Mike Mastel, middleweight pro, or lightweight pro, technically. They call it middleweight now. I was a lightweight pro. We had Justin Warren, who came, he won his pro card at arguably the most competitive amateur nationals ever. he beat like 9 guys that eventually went on to World's Strongest Man. Andrew Malazzi was always on the cusp of a pro card. A couple guys always on the cusp, but it was just a really serious group. Oh, then Christina Lefex. Christina Lefex was, I think, 2-time America's Strongest Woman runner-up or 3rd place to Kristen Rhodes, who's like the best ever. She was basically my training partner most of the time that I was there because I really wasn't strong enough to work out with the men. But she was an unbelievably strong woman.
Right.
You know, so, but that's kind of the level that I was at in that group. I was allowed in, but I was just so much lower than everybody else. But that atmosphere just really brought out a desire to achieve your best, you know, really at least just try as hard as you can.
So that whole group and keeping that strong of company really helped frame your mindset towards training for, you know, up until now?
Yes. I firmly believe if I didn't start with that group at that age, I might not have never found competing, but I definitely wouldn't have as expected as much for myself. Because I started with the group in 2008. And like I said, I was really bad for the first year and a half. But just being in that group kind of put in my mind, you know what? I want to try to win the teenage nationals. And I would have never thought of that if I wasn't in that group. And then I eventually did win after going 1 year and getting like 3rd to last or something. But I ended up winning it twice. So I would have never got that in my mind if I wasn't with that group where everybody was just doing something big, you know.
I think that's interesting because I know Paul and I will work with a lot of beginners when we're coaching. And for somebody like you who's so strong and so successful in strength sports, you had said you didn't walk in good at it. You walked in 130 pounds, really struggling with your pressing.
Yep.
But you stuck with it and continued to put in the effort to eventually get to where you're at now.
Well, and he became one of the best pressers in strongman when he was at the top of his game.
Yeah, at the time, yes. Yeah, at the time, yes. I wasn't great right away, but what you have to do with training, I think, the most important thing is just really loving the process. You have to like being a rookie. You have to like, okay, I have so much to learn about this lift, but it's not intimidating to me, you know? You have to be able to look at your form and kind of pick things apart without taking things emotionally. So it was really that process that I fell in love with. It wasn't so much, oh, I just want to compete and win stuff and do this and that. It was just, I loved going to the gym on Saturdays for those event days and just killing myself. I just loved it. You know, I loved after we'd be there 4, 5, 6 hours. It's a really long day. Not all of it was training. A lot was talking. A lot was talking. I'm not going to pretend like it was this 6-hour, you know, kill fest. But I just loved being sore. I just loved chipping away for that little PR. And that's what really keeps me still interested. It's the process. It's not checking off accomplishments. Because when you check off accomplishments, you're going to get tired of it pretty quickly. Trust me.
Well, it sounds like you almost took it as an opportunity to learn from some people that are already doing it and have been doing it for a while, than an opportunity to be intimidated by all the strong people around you.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to get over quickly that if you're surrounding yourself with smart coaches, strong lifters, you know, motivated athletes like we all should be, whether you're a beginner or you're advanced, it's easy to become intimidated by that. Or you could look at it as, all right, so this person's like Derek. You know, Derek's obviously better than anyone in that group. How does he approach training? How does he approach the events? What's his mindset like? I was kind of trying to learn those little things from him versus then, oh my God, he's 300 pounds and has abs. Because I will never be 300 pounds and have abs. It's just not in my nature. So I could either say, oh, I'm never going to be as good as this guy, or what can I learn from this guy to have success on my own level?
And so is falling in love with the process something that he had a part of teaching you? Or is that something that you kind of figured out on your own that you needed to do in order to progress?
I would say I kind of knew that before, but I really saw it like training in that group, like just what being all in terms of your mindset and your effort, it really is. And like how to really push yourself in the gym. You know, I thought I was training hard until I was training there. Mm-hmm. I mean,
well, I know now, even as you compete at a high level, you're still seeking out people that are better than you, or people that are at your level to keep that going.
It's because it's the best way to learn. It's the best way to learn. And it's not even through asking questions. I mean, I think we live in an age where it's so easy to have a coach or access your favorite lifter on the internet by like Instagram and ask a specific question. But I think a better way to learn is just to look at people that are at that level and just say, what are they doing? You know, how committed are they to their diet? What do they do for recovery? You know, what does their training look like? What are their competition philosophies? How do they act on meet day? That's another thing I've really noticed at the past couple meets that I've done, including the ones that I've done bad at. At one of the meets that I did the worst at, I watched these two heavyweight guys. One was having a pretty good day. The other one was really not, but they were just like cold as ice, you know, very, very cool. So I would have never learned that by asking them questions. You're like, oh, how do you approach competition game? They're just going to say, oh, you know, I'm relaxed and hanging out. Mm-hmm. But to actually see that, I was like, oh, I really need to get into this state of mind. And at that time, I wasn't, you know.
So what kind of state of mind were you in versus, like, I know you just competed at the hybrid showdown.
Yeah.
So how did you adjust your mindset from that meet that you just mentioned to the most recent one where you had a really good day?
Oh, okay. So probably for the past 3 years, maybe since I total 2000 for the first time, I've gotten really into like a checking the box mindset, which is just bad and toxic. And I'll go into that. We're going to obviously go into that more later, but it was like, I need to have this number to be happy with myself. I need to have this number or this competitive result to feel like the training cycle was a success. And the problem is, as you get stronger and stronger, you know, quantifiable measures of strength become harder to get, you know? Mm-hmm. So when I squatted 700 for the first time, I was like, oh, I just want to squat 800, not realizing how far away that is. And maybe you never get there, you know? So I was kind of falling short on these unrealistic goals I was setting for myself and getting very frustrated. So, you know, I've always trained intensely and all that, but just I was kind of losing my mindset and I was kind of losing my motivation with the sport. I've always been able to go in and punch the clock, but, you know, I wasn't having fun for a long time.
So you mentioned wanting to go to squatting 800 as soon as you hit 700. Have you shifted your goals away from specific numbers on the bar? Yes,
I have. And it's made PRing a lot easier.
So what are you focusing on more now?
I'm focused on like really small incremental process, like in terms of just going up in weight. So when I squatted 766 at the meet before this one, you know, people at the gym, oh, you're going to hit 800 next meet, right? No, probably not. Just 2.5 kilos, which is the smallest amount that you can go up. Mm-hmm. 771, that's great. A 2.5 kilo PR. And I'm just trying to chip away at numbers now versus like just going for the next milestone. And I also really prioritize the total. I'll sacrifice a performance on 1 or 2 lifts willingly if I can get a bigger PR on one lift and then just slowly improve my total. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to meet these 3 lift all the time milestones, because as you go on with training, you'll realize too that, yeah, we're trying to peak for all 3 lifts, but sometimes, you know, in a training cycle, your deadlift doesn't improve, your bench goes down, but your squat goes up, right? So now you could kind of get torn up. Oh, I'm having off training cycle on 2 lifts. This meet's going to suck. Or you could go out there, do great on the squat, take what you can on the other 2 lifts, and you still will have a PR total.
When's the last time that you PR'd all 3 lifts in a meet?
Oh, it's been a while. I would say 2016. Okay. I would say 2016. Yeah, when I first totaled 2000, I hit three PRs, and I haven't done it since on all 3.
So getting more comfortable focusing on maybe the total rather than each lift, and focusing on that, maybe improving just 1 or 2 at a time has helped you not get so wound up on meet day.
Yes, and back to what I was saying about learning from example, like watching those 2 heavyweights, Brandon Allen and Andy Huang at the 2018 Kern US Open. It was just watching their example. You know, like they're just hanging out on meet day and having fun. You can't be like, oh, like I'm so serious. There's people that you see pacing the floors and like breathing in and out, like hours before the meet starts, you know?
Redlining all day.
Right. And the guys that are doing the best, they are hanging out. It's a training day to them. Mm-hmm. You know, they are so confident in the numbers that they're going to hit. They're just not getting hyped at all because they know it's there. And when you're nervous and when you're doubting yourself and you're obsessed with checking the box, you don't have that confidence where you can take it easy, you know? So just learning how to take it easy at meet days has been by far the biggest difference I've made towards my competitive mindset recently. And that's why I think that was the number one driver behind my recent PR, was just learning to go to the meet. And you know what? This is fun. This is the pinnacle of all this work. It's not that oh, my self-worth is attached to the outcome of this day anymore. This is just the pinnacle of all my work. I'm seeing all my friends that I never see outside of meets, from all over the country. I'm just going to hang out with them. And when it's my time to lift, when my name is called, I'll turn it on and then turn it off.
I think you mentioned a bunch of huge things there, starting from the end with the ability to be able to kind of turn it on and turn it off when you need to. There's no way to get through, all 9 lifts in a meet and be able to give them your all and get hyped up for every single
100%. 100%.
So
yes. Yeah. I mean, you need to hit that opener in second cold. And I think you need to be able to hit 1, maybe 2/3 cold. I mean, you really cannot. I don't know really anybody that can be that intense all the time. I haven't seen it at a high level. The more that I go on and the more high level people I meet, it's more of just like that ice cold demeanor that I get. I mean, these people don't get excited at all. Some of them, Jamal Browner, before he pulled 975 at hybrid, I mean, I was just shooting the shit with him before. He was just totally not hyped at all. He probably turned it on when he set his grip on one thumb. And then after that, he got hyped for about 10 seconds and then was relaxed again.
Yeah, I think you see that a lot in when you go to a bigger meet versus a local meet.
Yes.
At a local meet, you see people like running around, pacing the hallways, jumping up and down, like
yes. And it
screaming.
Stems from fear.
Yeah.
It stems from fear, and it stems from not having confidence. Because I've done that myself. When I felt like I needed to be a screamer and a yeller, it was because I was not confident. I was scared of the weight. Mm-hmm. I was scared of the weight. And I think being scared of the weight, I've heard people say, oh, you can never be scared of the weight you're getting under. I don't really agree with that. It's always scary. It also kind of ties into my career. Same thing, a really brave, competent fireman isn't not afraid of the fire. He's actually extremely afraid because he knows so much about it. However, he knows how to use that fear to benefit him and make his decisions smarter. So when you're afraid at a meet, that's fine, right? If you want to get hype at a meet for the lift that it's appropriate on, that's fine. But instead of just screaming and yelling, put that energy into your setup. I'm really going to get this left arm secure. I'm really going to get this right arm secure. I'm really going to bring my scaps and lats in on the squat, Just instead of screaming and yelling with emotion, just put it into something productive. And instead of being afraid of the weight, be afraid of the weight, but by giving it the respect it deserves, by setting up properly, by really giving it your best effort.
Right. I mean, you're squatting close to 800 pounds. And so when things go wrong at those weights, things really go wrong.
Right. Yeah. You can't let your fear manifest itself once you're under that weight. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be precise. Everything has to be precise. And that's not easiest for beginners or intermediates to do, but you shouldn't get overwhelmed by the amount of stuff you have to learn on a lift. Just learn how to do 1 or 2 things really, really well, and then work on it 1 or 2 cues at a time. That's how I've really learned technique over the years.
And so even as advanced as you are, you're still just focusing on maybe 1 thing or 2
yes,
at each time to improve for each lift.
Because the goal is to make most of it, almost all of it, automatic, right? So I have a cue for everything on my squat, and I don't want to get into overcoaching, but like for me, I have a cue for everything on my squat from like my eyebrows to my toes. I mean, every little part between I have some sort of cue, right? Mm-hmm. But I've worked on those cues in the past before. So really, for me, there's only 1 or 2 things I'm struggling with at one time. And I think that's true for most people. I think most people at a certain level of proficiency know how to squat ideal to their leverages, or if they have the right coaching and all that. But their brace might be a little lazy. They might be squatting too much in extension, right? But we can trust that they know how to do most of that list correct, So you just coach those 2 cues, and I think that's a more effective way of coaching and just treating yourself as an athlete.
Yeah, so we talk about this all the time. Lifts can be super technical if you really want to break them down and try to be as efficient as possible.
Yes.
But you don't need to be as efficient as possible right off the bat. What you need to do is figure out what the low-hanging fruit are and what is holding you back the most, and focus on that until it becomes something that you do automatically without thinking, and then you move on to the next thing.
Yes.
And then, 15 years down the road, you might be squatting 800 pounds.
Right. And, technique is something that you learn progressively. Like my technique has radically changed on all of my lifts over the course of my training career. But my training career is long. I didn't become a technically proficient lifter, and I still have problems, but I didn't become a technically proficient lifter overnight. I look back at some stuff I was doing in high school. Like if I pull like my parents' old digital camera, oh my God, I thought I had such good form. No. I was doing some things right, but there was other things I had no clue what I was doing.
Well, it's kind of going from trying to mimic other people's forms to finding your technique, what works for you.
Yes, that's definitely a good point too. So I do agree that you learn a lot from watching other people. It's okay to look at Jamal Browner, right? And take away one or two things from his deadlift, like, oh, he has really good neck position or chin position, or, you know, he pulls the slack out of the bar really well, right? But you can't try to mimic his deadlift. I was just talking to this about this exact same thing with somebody yesterday. His deadlift works for him because he has put the time in and failed and then succeeded and figure out what's worked for him and his leverages. The individual and their unique leverages are all different. So like if I tried to pull like Jamal Browner, I would pull like 0 pounds because it just doesn't work for me. I've tried to do that in the past. He can generate a ton of speed off the floor and it follows through at lockout. For me, I have to generate almost no speed at the start and just focus on positioning. So that just goes to show you how individualized technique can be. We pull two completely different ways. He's much better than me, don't get me wrong. But if I tried to copy him, I just wouldn't be able to do anything. So I had to put in the time and learn my own way to do things.
One of my favorite examples of that is, I think you have talked about this recently. You rebuilt your bench press, if I understand correctly, from more of heaving the bar up to a more controlled press. Could you talk a little bit about maybe why you feel that you needed to make that change and how you went about it?
Oh, it's a pretty simple answer. Like, things work until they don't. You know, I switched to that technique shortly after I started powerlifting. I watched Dan Green do a similar technique, once again copying people's technique. But this one actually worked for me, and I got tremendous carryover from it for a while. And then once I got my bench over 500, it was something I couldn't rely on anymore. My press became too sloppy, and it was too much weight. It was too much weight, you know. It was too ballistic and dynamic of a technique to use with a lot of weight. So, and then my bench started actually sliding backwards, and it was kind of like, all right, I know I need to make this change. This form just doesn't feel right anymore. But how do I rip it apart and figure out what's important? And really, the answer is just trial and error. You have to try little things, and it's just little technique changes. You know, like I said, 1 or 2 cues at a time. Figure out what works, figure out what doesn't. But the only way to do it is to just have trial and error, and you're going to fail a lot. But can't get intimidated by that fail or get upset about it or emotional. It's like, okay, what can I learn from this? What did we learn here? And every little experiment that I had, I learned something. They weren't all successful, but accumulate all that together over a long period of time, and then it ended up in a totally rebuilt bench press.
So how long did it take you to rebuild from when you switched techniques?
4 years.
Were there PRs in that time, or did you go from I think you said you get stuck at 500, right?
I got stuck at 515.
Okay.
Yeah, I got stuck at 515, and because I hit that for the first time in 2016, and then in 2018 I got a 3-pound PR. So it took 2 years for 3 pounds, and then after that I got another 5 pounds. Yeah. So yeah, 6 years to put about 8 pounds on my bench.
How did you keep yourself focused, and like what made you stick with it when you're going through these long periods of time where you're questioning a lift, you're really unsure, right? Because you weren't sure if there's going to be a payoff at the end.
I kind of believed for a while that, you know what, maybe I just hit my last PR, you know, like competing at this level. I mean, who knows? You don't really know what your ceiling is until you hit it. So I was kind of wondering, maybe I hit my ceiling. But what motivated me to stick with it was just, again, that love for the process that we were talking about earlier. Because if you're just focused on checking off numbers, when you hit a plateau like that, I mean, a multi-year plateau, you're just going to quit. I guarantee it. You have to love that training process. And you know what? I'm not progressing, but like, I just need to come to the gym because it's good for me, because it's good for me physically, because it's good for me mentally and psychologically. And I believe at some point, maybe it is years away, and maybe it's going to feel like it's never coming, but at some point I can make some sort of incremental progress on this.
And something I noticed that you did that you may or not even notice that you did as your coach during this process of trying to get your bench to PR was you were really focusing on your progress on some of your accessory lifts.
Yes.
And we were able to kind of push some pressing movements that you may not have done in a while and get some PRs there. And I think that may have helped a little bit in that process.
Oh, for sure. For sure, yeah. And also, too, with getting stalled, too, was if I could talk about my coaching background with Paul or my client background with Paul. So I was doing the traditional, like upper-lower split for pretty much my whole training career. And then once I got on the fire department, I noticed that recoverability was becoming a huge issue. The day that made me realize I had to switch to a more sustainable plan. So like the day before, I was on my old program. And this system of training worked tremendously for me, too. So I'm not discounting it at all. I did it for about 6 years. It was incremental in building a base for me for powerlifting. But I had like a ridiculously heavy squat day. So it was like squats, pause squats, lunges, belt squats. And then the next day I went to a 3-alarm fire at work. It was 100 and something degrees out. And I was there like 9-10 hours doing brutal work. And the next day I woke up and I was like so sore. And that was kind of like the accumulation of realizing how much I needed to change with my training now that my career was going on. So after that, I got really serious about doing cardio. And I switched to a full body routine, and I found it was much more easier to recover from. So then I started working with Paul, just handling my conditioning, but working with my old coach on a full body program. That was great for a while, but I was seeing so much progress with my conditioning, with having Paul handle it professionally instead of me just getting on the rower and making up a random workout like I was doing. I said, you know what? Let's see what happens if we can handle, or if he can handle everything. So I've been working with him for now, like a year? Something like that. A little over that. Yeah. A little over a year. But, it was just kind of like a reprioritization of stuff. So switching to the full body program, like for work, I'm little sore everywhere, but I'm not trashed. So that really helps me ensure that I can perform at work when I need to, instead of like, I deadlifted 20 sets yesterday, then squatted. So like I can't do this emergency task that needs to get done. That really helped kind of turn things around with, my plateaus on all 3 lifts, really. Bench frequency, I was only benching once or twice a week. I started benching 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week. That was just a whole different system of training that I wasn't exposed to. Really, the difference with Paul is just like kind of getting into a different mindset and approach that I really had not done at all. It's kind of the polar opposite of everything I was doing, and seeing how it worked. And it just goes to show you that really everything works if you're programming it right. But it's knowing when to switch things and when to switch things up. That's where the professional coach comes in and knows what's best for you.
Yeah, and you made it sound very almost casual that you were trashed at work, but there are some very serious consequences, and I know you're well aware of that. But there can be some serious consequences for a firefighter who can't perform their job because they did too much in the gym the day before or that day.
Right. Yeah, it's not even so much like being sore. It's really the aerobic capacity thing. Another pretty specific example. So I lost 27 pounds when I was in the fire academy, pretty much all muscle. My bench went down over 100 pounds. So when I got out of the academy, I was like, I need to just blow up back to the weight that I was before and just get as big as possible, just for like my ego's sake. Right. So I went from like 227 to 240 like that really quickly. But I noticed once my rookie rotation started going and it was winter. Winter's our busy season. We catch more fires in the winter. I'd go to a kitchen fire, which is just like, a nothing for us. It's pretty easy, and be gassed, and I'm like, all right, this is a really serious flaw in my game. Because if you think about decision making, you make poor decisions when you're tired. So tired isn't just limited to, I didn't sleep enough last night. That's, physical fatigue. So if I'm running out of air when I really shouldn't be running out of air, I'm going to make a poor decision because I'm tired. So that was part of my buy-in with Paul to handle my conditioning as well. It's like, all right, I need this not just for lifting or my own enjoyment, but for my career. And that's been the biggest thing I've noticed from it, is just to be able to make decisions when you're tired and you're under duress and think clearly, kind of reel it all in and drop your heart rate down and make decisions, which is extremely important to what I do. So that's a huge motivator for me to stick with the aerobic capacity stuff and the cardio and all that.
So you kind of started doing the aerobic work for your job and to be able to keep up. But then as you started doing it, I know you kind of started to see some benefits in the weight room and
Yes.
outside of your job. So I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So probably the first thing I noticed right away was just an increase in the ability to handle volume. I wasn't staying as sore for long, which was great. You know, workout that normally trashed me for 3 days, like, you know, a day and a half or less later, I was ready to go. So right away, volume and the ability to work just increased, work capacity increased tremendously. But just in terms of lifestyle, I can't believe the differences in my ability to sleep. That's going to be the number one issue with my job. We can get more into that later. But I had obviously shift work related sleep issues when I first started. And as I got more in shape and more in shape, I noticed my ability to resist fatigue was higher. So like, I'm not saying you should only sleep 6 hours. That's not good, you know, but you know, there's some days that work, you know, all right, I only slept 6 hours last night or 4 hours last night, and I have stuff to do the next day. You know, I have to be able to function. And it made being able to function so much better. You know, it's less dependent on caffeine. When I was getting sleep, a good quality sleep, it was just much deeper, more restful. Really just the sleep, what it did to my sleep was huge. And then my mood in general. I noticed my mood went up just all the time, you know, like I'm in a better mood constantly. It's great.
Yeah.
I don't know how to really describe it anywhere else. It sounds a little awkward, but yeah, just in a happier mood all the time. Another big thing too was I noticed like my pain went down, my general sensation of pain. Mm-hmm. So we could talk about pain forever, but at lifting at the level that I do, I'm in some sort of discomfort all the time. And then, you know, working a manual labor job that brings more discomfort. But I noticed my attitude towards my pain, it just kind of felt like, oh yeah, like I worked out yesterday versus that. Oh, my bones are sore. Oh, my joints are sore. Or, oh, I'm injured. You know, this hurts, that hurts specifically, you know. It just improved my pain. And I've had issues in my hip going on for years at this point. I really don't know what's exactly wrong with it. But I noticed that just being in more shape and having a higher level of NEAT and doing a manual labor job just did more for reducing pain in that area than stretching or any of that stuff ever did. It's pretty cool.
So you started to manage recoverability a little bit more, and that enhanced your lifting game.
Yes, but it wasn't enhancing recoverability through doing less, which is what most people do. They get beat up from training and they're like, oh, I only need to train 2 days a week, or I need a break, or people that just take weeks or months just off the gym just because they feel like they need a break. It was actually through doing more. It was through doing higher frequency. It was through doing more cardio. It was through doing, you know, keeping my NEAT higher. It was actually from more expecting more of myself versus taking it easy.
On slower shifts at the firehouse, did you start moving around more during those shifts so there wasn't an opportunity to keep your NEAT up through work?
Yes, I actually do that now. So on slower days, I will get on the Stairmaster and do like really low intensity lifts just to keep moving. Mm-hmm. I notice, especially for like my hip, if I take like less than 7,000 or 8,000 steps a day, it kind of starts to feel stuffed up and mobility is lower. But if my steps are over 10,000 a day, especially like at a work day, which it always is, my hip feels great. It's really just about keeping that area moving versus, oh, I need to go to a physical therapist to address this pain, or, oh, I need to foam roll or stretch, because I had done all that for years and pain got a little better, then the pain came back. Pain got a little better, pain came back. So it was kind of just chasing pain and not really solving anything.
Is that something that you manage throughout the course of an entire day? Like, rather than go for a half-hour walk, you'll do 5-10 minute walks multiple times throughout the day to keep yourself
kind of just depends on the day.
Active,
yeah, I'll do either or. I prefer to do the activity more broken up, but there's some days where I'm busy or just not able to do it in broken up shifts. And like at work, I might be doing stuff all day. Then the only free time I get is half an hour to hit the Stairmaster, or 20 minutes. I'll just do it all there.
So kind of brought up a few different points that we wanted to talk about.
Okay.
But one of them was work. And
mm-hmm.
We've mentioned a few times that you're a firefighter. And with that comes a crazy schedule that kind of a lot of people would think would inhibit your ability to perform in the weight room. So let's kind of talk about how you approach your job, as your mindset towards your job and training to allow you to kind of be able to progress even with all the life stressors that you've added?
Okay. Yeah. So going to the fire department was a big shift for me. I mean, before I got on, I was just working like part-time, barely full-time, just, waited tables in bars, stuff like that. So I was always up late and my sleep was kind of off before I got on the job. But the schedule since I got on, so it's a 24-hour shift. It's one 24-hour shift followed by 3 days off. Now, like people always say, 3 days off, you only work 2 days a week, right? But, I have 24-hour shifts where I come in at 6 in the morning and I don't stop till moving till 6 the next morning. You're awake and working for 24 hours straight. So that first day off, you're shot. The second day off, you're attempting to get back to normal. And by the third day off, you're getting ready to go back, So that really throws sleep for a curveball. But I kind of just have this mindset about balancing training and work where it's really just I have to be able to do both of these. Mm-hmm. Both of these things are just too important for me to go, this is hard. I can't do this. I'm never switching jobs, right? But I think I have a little more to give in powerlifting. So I don't want to just say, I got a job now. I can't powerlift. No, I don't buy it. There's got to be a solution here. So the solution for me was really just firstly getting my aerobic capacity up, because it just makes everything better is the short answer of it. It makes everything better. But I've just managed my sleep a little bit better.
So when it came to the importance of aerobic capacity, is that something that you did anticipating how much it would help you, or was it something that you decided you were going to try?
I decided I was going to get into more conditioning work for the performance aspect of like being able to be a performer at work is the best way to think about it. Mm-hmm. Like really what we do is kind of like a sport. I mean, you're an athlete.
Absolutely.
So it's like, all right, I need to take this part of my athletic career seriously. This is an athletic career that's separate from powerlifting, but it's still an athletic career nonetheless. But I was really most interested in the performance benefits, but the lifestyle benefits in terms of just mood, cognition, and being able to sleep and get restful sleep on my kind of altered sleep schedule, I was not expecting at all. It really wasn't. But they did start coming on very quickly. I mean, within a month or two, I started noticing big differences.
What are some of the other things that you have to do to go into a shift prepared? Because you said you're working for 24 hours, so you don't know ahead of time if you're going to be awake or not.
Right.
If you're going to get to sleep, how frequently you're going to get to eat. So how do you manage and
have to go do a fire or not?
Oh, yeah. So, right. Yeah. So I've kind of just, approached my meals differently. The number one thing is being prepared. Most people I work with, they come in for a 24-hour shift. They don't show up with anything. They're regular people. They might eat no breakfast or, just something small for breakfast there, like a bowl of oatmeal. Lunch they buy out, and then dinner we cook. But there's some days, like if we go to a fire first thing in the morning and we're there all day, there's no lunch, there's no dinner or anything like that. So it's really just being prepared with nutrition. So every day that I come into work, whether I'm there for a 24-hour shift or a 48 or a 60, which we do sometimes, every one of my meals is there, it's measured out, and I have access to it. Sometimes that means eating food cold. I call it meals on wheels, eating in the back of the truck. I eat in the back of the truck. I have food stuffed above. I carry protein bars in my bag just in case I'm away from those meals, which I've used several times, which is great. Hydration I have to take seriously. I have at least 32 ounces before I go into work. I have a long ride down. But yeah, there was one time I went to a fire after just having coffee. Like I didn't even get to eat breakfast yet, and I caught the most vicious cramp in the fire. So yeah, you've really got to take everything seriously. And this isn't even powerlifting. This is just a job where it's performance based. If you really want to be good at it, there's a lot of little things to consider. So yeah, the nutrition stuff is definitely big for being able to perform as a firefighter, but also just recover as an athlete.
Is that something that you were aware of when you started, or did you kind of run into some problems when you were first on the job and realize that if you wanted to keep taking your training seriously, you needed to make those adjustments?
Yeah, it was pretty much just learned all by error. But they were errors that I recognized pretty quickly, like eating not filling meals or like having a different macronutrient composition of my meals. So like at work, my macronutrient composition of my meals focuses on like long-term feeling of fullness, satiety. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
It's satiety. Okay. I knew that was spelled. But yeah, it's about being satisfied and like full for long periods of time, because especially like between breakfast and lunch, I regularly go like 5-6 hours without. It's just I can't eat any sooner than that. So the meals that I do get in, I have to make count, and I do, but that's just through planning.
When it comes to, again, all the other stressors that we've been talking about and managing, are there some of the other little things that you've come up with other than being prepared with your food? Have you had to adjust your training at all, or any other little tricks to manage a stressful lifestyle?
Yeah, it's really just a mindset thing too. Like every day that I get off of work, I know I'm going to be beat. Mm-hmm. But I like training in the morning. It's better for my sleep. I usually have better performance. So I know every morning when I go to an off-shift workout, I'm going to be tired, right? So what? We're all tired. When I first got on, I'd feel really bad. I'm like, oh, I got to go home and nap. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I realized how unnecessary some of that was. I'm tired. Well, okay, we're all tired. I'm always going to be tired. I can still train. I know I can still go in and have a good session. And it's about kind of distinguishing between levels of fatigue. Sometimes I go home, if I've been awake for 24 straight hours, I will go home and sleep, right? But every day is not a day to take it easy or make an excuse or take a shortcut. We all have stress. We're all tired. Things are hard, but it's about how you look at it. If I'm tired, it's like, all right, I had a great day at work yesterday. I had a productive day at work. It wasn't just, oh, work's beating me down, or my job is so hard, or no one's has a harder job than me. You got to put a positive spin on everything. So I just put a positive spin in terms of approaching training now, and it's been able to be a lot more successful.
Is that a trend that you see in strength sports? Is catastrophizing these feelings of being tired, or?
Oh yeah, catastrophizing is, oh my gosh. It's a plague at an intermediate level. It's a plague, even at an advanced level. People, especially when you talk about low back pain or stuff like that, or common overuse injuries, people just don't realize what they can do to help themselves. Like low back pain, for example, right? If their back hurts, they do no NEAT, they do no cardio, they're on a program where they're not training within their MRV. They're constantly overtrained and under recovering. Of course, you're going to have low back pain, right? But instead of addressing the problems, you know what? Maybe I need to eat better. Maybe I need to get on a different program or increase my recoverability. They just go for easy fixes like PT and chiro and rolling out, and they run into the same problems over and over and over again. But that's through catastrophizing, saying, oh, this is the worst thing ever. I got to take it easy for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and decondition myself and detrain myself every time I have a low back tweak. Mm-hmm. It's just non-productive. But yeah, that all comes from catastrophizing pain for sure.
And I think a lot of times when we talk about things related to training too, we talk about them coming from a place of experience, right? We've been there.
Yeah.
We've made these mistakes and moved past them. And so looking at other people who might be making these same mistakes that could be better, right? You mentioned that catastrophizing is really popular at the intermediate level, right? So do you feel that that catastrophizing mindset keeps a lot of potential advanced and elite level lifters?
100%. Absolutely. What happens is, the gym is easy and it's easy to make progress, and competing is fun and it's easy to make progress until it's not. People hit that first stall, and through catastrophizing what's going on with their stall, they never find or buy into the solutions to their problems, and they're just going to keep running into that wall over and over again, and then they end up quitting.
Well, I think you brought up a couple points there that are important. Is about, you keep talking about controlling the things you can control, and how there's all these other factors in your life that you might not have control over, but you can prepare for them better or control the way you react to them. Where you might not be able to control that event necessarily.
Right.
And you can see that kind of in your work and the way you prepare for work, and then how that bleeds over into your training and this whole catastrophizing of just anything going wrong in your training that we see a lot in intermediate lifters is they hit this sticking point or they start to plateau off.
Right.
And they start to kind of overanalyze everything they're doing and trying to find problems that aren't there, and trying to fix things that are maybe just anatomical or something that they don't really have control over.
Right.
So can you kind of talk about how you've maybe even gone from being there where you were being overcritical of everything you were doing to a point where you were just doing the things you had control over and how that
Okay.
changed your training.
It really just comes down to a 15-year journey where I just have screwed up far more than I've succeeded, you know, and that's really any success story in life is just you're going to fail a lot. So I've realized over the years, okay, I can't control pain. I can't control what kind of workout I'm going to have. I can't control how successful the training cycle will be. I can't control how strong I feel when I go into the gym. But what I can control is what kind of effort am I putting out? Is my nutrition on point? Am I doing the best I can with the controllable variables in my recoverability to be able to recover to my best potential, no matter what life's throwing at me, you know? Okay, I have a newborn, right? So yeah, sleep's going to be all screwed up. But am I doing the best I can? Yes. That's the best you can do. And that's it. You can't get obsessed with the minor little details and, oh, you know what? Like I squatted 700. I should be at an 800 squat. You can't control that. You can't control your pace. But you can always control certain things. And for training, I've noticed it's what kind of effort are you putting out? How consistent is your nutrition? Are you taking your recoverability seriously? Are you doing your cardio? If you do have a specific issue like with mobility that you need to stretch on, are you doing your stretches or whatever? You know, as long as you're controlling the variables that you actually can control, don't even worry about the big picture stuff. The big picture stuff is just going to come. But as lifters, I feel like when we start working hard, you know, like most intermediate level lifters work pretty hard to a degree, you know, when we start working hard, when you run into problems, you either think that you can control them, you know, oh, if I only did more bracing drills, my squat would be better. You know, oh, if I only did this type of treatment, or oh, if I only got cupped every day, you know, I would like be able to do this amount of weight or whatever. They think they control everything with effort, and you can't.
Well, and I think that brings up another point is you have people that are, you know, struggling with whatever their squat or their bench or their deadlift, and they turn to try to find some intervention or some fix or something instead of just squatting more or deadlifting more or benching more. Like, the best way to get better at those things is to do them. Like, practicing low-level bracing drills on the floor all day is not going to help you brace under 800 pounds, because you can't practice bracing under 800 pounds until you have 800 pounds on your back. Right.
And that number is, you know, completely variable for everybody too. You know, so for like some people, you know, it might be, you know, for like a female competitor, like, okay, you squatted 315. That's a tremendous squat, right? But to go from 315 to 335, you don't really have to do anything differently. You just have to drive through that wall for months or years by just squatting more. Like, you just got to pay the toll. Sometimes the toll is just a lot of work over a long period of time for very little progress. You know, do certain times call for, you know, specific interventions? Sure. You know, maybe like you need to train harder, which most people need to do. You know, maybe you need to execute your nutrition better. Maybe you just need to execute the basics better. But yeah, the toll can just be, sometimes you just got to plow through it, and it just takes time, and it feels like there's no end in sight, but that's what it costs.
And then I think that kind of brings us to another point that you keep bringing up is recoverability, and how it ties into work capacity, and how people have this idea of how to recover, and how they need to take ice baths and stretch and do foam rolling to recover. When you found that ramping up your training has helped your recovery because you're able to handle more stress and your overall workload is higher, and any individual session is not going to bring you over that threshold, so you just end up, you know, not experiencing so many of the same difficulties that other people are experiencing when it comes to powerlifting.
Yeah. So yeah, with the recoverability aspect, so like that kind of ties into aerobic capacity as well. Like, if you just try it, that's the thing. Most people won't even put in the effort. Like, I get all the time, oh, cardio definitely kills gains. There's no way that you can run and like be able to squat or this or that. People have these misconceptions, but if they just put in the effort, they would notice that it's not that you're doing too much. It's that you're probably doing too little.
How did you see increasing your work capacity help your recoverability more so than doing stuff that people typically think about when they think recovery?
That was just through specific experience. So going back to like 2014 and 2016, I had, you know, I wasn't doing conditioning work at all. I wasn't doing cardiovascular work at all. I had very low levels of NEAT. but I would warm up for 45 minutes, and I had a PT that I was seeing 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and I was always in pain still. And then life kind of took me in a different direction with being busier. All right, I can't go to PT this much. And I coincidentally got into the cardio stuff, not realizing what it was going to do for, mobility and recoverability. And I noticed that was more effective than all that other stuff that I was doing, and all that other, the amount of money that I was spending and the amount of time I was spending on professional treatments and manual therapies, just walking more and just being in better shape and just training harder and training more frequently increased my recoverability more than very specific treatments did.
And to just kind of go into the science there a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I pay you for. I don't know most of this stuff. I know how I feel, but that's what I pay you for. Yep.
So there is some research showing that doing cardio after strength training might inhibit your strength gains to a very small degree. And people see this research and kind of hang on to it as a reason not to do their conditioning work. And
okay, yep.
That is just lazy and short-sighted, because what people don't realize is the benefits of actually doing your conditioning are going to far outweigh that small decrement in your ability to gain strength. So when you're doing your aerobic work, you're able to recover in between sessions faster, and
yes.
You're able to recover in between sets in your session faster, which allows you to handle more volume over the long term, which in the long term will allow more strength gains. So that small single-digit percentage decrease in short-term strength when a strength training program is combined with conditioning is kind of moot when you look at the big picture,
right?
Which is kind of everything we're talking about today.
And people that cling on to the, cardio is bad for gains philosophy, right? They're never the people that are all in, right? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, I'm really worried about cardio killing my gains. Dude, you don't even follow a structured diet, right? Like, what do you...
Donuts while you work out.
Yeah, people that eat donuts while they work out, right? Like, what are you talking about? Like this 10, even if it was 10%, right? If your diet is a 40%, why are you worried about this 10% drop off, When you have this massive deficit in your diet or your training program or your lifestyle or your recoverability, those are the big things. It's people need to focus on executing the big things, right? And I think one of the big things is being in shape and having an aerobic capacity.
Yeah. We talked about that with technique, is attacking the low-hanging fruit, and that goes for your training and your lifestyle as well. There's things that have huge, large impacts on your health, like your healthiness.
Yeah.
And your ability to live life to its fullest. And those are the things you need to concentrate on and stop worrying about all the little things that you don't have control over.
So comparison for me was like, I used to do floating all the time.
Yeah.
The float tanks. Does it work? Absolutely. I think it works to a degree, right? But what works better than floating and having a really bad sleep schedule does? Not floating and having a way better sleep schedule. I mean, just to be honest, they're two things that are very similar, but one's a specific treatment and one's a lifestyle change. And the lifestyle change is more productive and you get more out of it.
Exactly. A lot of those modalities work because they force you to turn off your phone and close your eyes and relax for an extended period of time and manage your stress and be able to kind of be with yourself for, an extended period of time and sort things out in your head. And those things you don't need modalities to do if you're addressing your lifestyle. Like if you're managing your stress overall, you don't need to go float at the end of the week to decompress because you're already doing that during your week. Right.
Yeah, like one thing I've done, probably the biggest thing that I've done to help address my sleep was just establishing a bedtime routine and establishing strict wake up and, strict sleep times.
Like if we talk about like the three major contributors to how strong we are with training, and then we have our nutrition, and then we have recovery or like stress management.
Right.
You talked about letting go of the little things as helping you deal with less stress, but also sleep being one of the biggest.
Sleep is huge.
Predictors of your recoverability, right? So I know earlier we were talking about your journey through strongman, and then we started talking about powerlifting meets, but we didn't touch on why you made that switch. So I was hoping you could highlight why you switched from strongman to powerlifting, and maybe what your mindset was like when you first started the new sport of powerlifting versus now after you've been competing in it for so long.
Okay, so I switched to powerlifting initially. So I did strongman competitively from 2008 to 2013. One of the last things I did was win my lightweight pro card. And at the time, once you got your lightweight pro card, you pretty much went to pro nationals every year, and that was it. So basically, your opportunities to compete were a lot more limited. I ended up getting an overuse injury, just kind of like the whole tweaking my back thing. Now it's a 1 week ordeal, and back then it was a 3-4 month ordeal. Mm-hmm. Tweaked my back, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to rehab from this, and I'm kind of burnt out with strongman. I'm going to miss pro nationals, so let me do a powerlifting meet. Because at the time, I was training a lot like a powerlifter, even though I was doing strongman. So I signed up for a powerlifting meet, did one, loved it. The next meet I got into was actually Raw Unity 7, so that was in 2014. It was one of the greatest Raw meets of all time. I was so lucky for it to be my second meet, and that was it. I was hooked once I saw that. Andrei Milanichev squatted 1,013 there. Dan Green totaled 2099 at 220. He broke the wrapped record in sleeves. And that was just two of so many incredible performances. And I liked powerlifting a lot better. I thought it was a little more interesting. It was a switch up. I thought it was a lot more highly technical. I thought like the mental game of competing was a lot more interesting. Because strongman, you're given the weights. It's okay, log press 250 or as many as you can, right? You're limited by those weights. But with powerlifting, you call the shots. You're 100% in control of how you can lift or how much you're lifting. It's a climate controlled atmosphere. I felt like it was like an environment that I could really, control the most amount of variables and express max strength to its truest potential. I just fell in love with it.
So since you started, we were talking about this a little bit before we got recording, but we see a lot of people where lifting is their life.
Yes.
And making that transition from lifting being your identity to having lifting just be a part of your life and a part of who you are, being a little bit more beneficial in the long run. Could you talk about your shift from one mindset to another?
Yeah. So, in high school and college, I was doing strongman, and I was just a student, so I was able to devote a lot of energy into it. And then after college, I was probably devoting way too much energy into it because I wanted to be as competitive as possible and not enough energy into getting a good job and kind of establishing myself in life. And I've noticed that, now that I've taken on so much more responsibility with a demanding career and continuing education and working 90, 100 hours a week when I was only working 20, 30 back then or 40, I've still been able to succeed. And it's just because my life is more complete now. I think a lot of people think, if I can only be a full-time athlete and just train all day and have an easy job, I would train better or be better. No, not necessarily. It's kind of a scary thing to attach your entire self-identity to this, competitive endeavor where, all right, if you have a bad meet and this is all you identify yourself with, what does the past 9 months of your life mean? It doesn't feel very good, but me, so I ended up bombing out of a meet. I think it was about 3 years into the fire department. And it was the worst I had ever done in my life. That wasn't due to work or anything like that. That was solely my responsibility. But I just had so much other goodness in my life. I'm married now. I own a home. I have a very rewarding career. I think I'm a mentally healthier person than I was when I was too invested in competing. I didn't really care about it at all, just because I was so enriched with other things in my life. And then when it came time to start training after that meet, I was already in a good place. And I was ready to hit the ground running. Whereas when I was obsessed with lifting, if I did poorly, I'd be emotional and unmotivated. So it's totally changed how I put effort into training too. And I realized that I can put a lot of effort into training and a lot of other effort into other things in life. And I'm happier for it. And I think it makes my lifting better. I think it makes anyone's lifting better if the rest of their life is in balance.
With how strong you are and how much you've progressed, do you feel that your training right now is the least stressful it's ever been? With how controlled everything is?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's just because I know how plateaus work. I know, what I can control and what I can't control. I can control coming to the gym every day and working hard. I can control sticking to the program. I can control making smart attempt selections versus egotistical attempt selections. I can control sleeping. I can control eating, but everything else I really can't control. So I'm just going to keep showing up and rolling with it because I'm doing the best I can. Right. I think that's an important mindset for people to buy into. First, you have to do the things necessary to do the best you can, right? Many people are saying they're doing the best they can and they're really not, right? So, but once you're controlling everything you can control within reason, it's just showing up and being positive. It's just showing up. It really is something powerful, and I think a lot of people overlook.
Yeah, that's something else that you can control is your outlook and your mindset on the given situation. Yep. And I think that's something that you do a really good job of is, even in the most horrible situations, you can look at the bright side and be able to control your emotions and not let yourself get upset and get into like a rabbit hole of just negativity.
That's the thing with analysis. So analysis is important because it lets us know what we're deficient in. But people get over analytical and start criticizing everything they do. And when you criticize everything you do, are you really arriving at positive conclusions, from that? Or are you just kind of complaining, right? Mm-hmm. And creating a negative atmosphere around your training. So you have to learn how to make that productive. And the best way I think of it is like a used car salesman. So think about, I use Instagram as a training log. I'm basically writing down my training to kind of like get my thoughts out there, right? Even if training is going horrible, I'm like a used car salesman trying to sell a lemon, right? So, the car leaks oil, right? But the motor's good, right? As long as you get that oil leak fixed, the motor's good. So if I'm having issues in one lift, right? And I'm just complaining about, oh, my squat is terrible, using negative verbs, negative adjectives. Everything's terrible. The training cycle's terrible, right? You can talk about the good you're doing. Focus on the good you're doing. Squat's feeling a little bit off, but I'm confident that the total will come. Or, squat's feeling off right now, but I still got 8 weeks and I learned these 2 things today. Things are still looking up, right? Just focus on the wins and focus on what's going right. And if there's things going wrong, be realistic. All right, can I control what's going on here or can I not? And if you can't control it, you need to really resign yourself to the fact that you can't control it. But just keep going.
Mm-hmm. So when I had said earlier, too, that this is sort of the least stressful that training has ever been for you, that's not to negate the fact that you're putting in tremendous amounts of effort into being prepared. And that's why the training...
It requires more effort than ever now.
Right.
To stick with training, yeah. So technically, it is more stressful than ever, but my outlook on it is better.
Right. Is that why you continue to compete and train? Because your outlook keeps improving over time? Or
that's what's made it, when I had a negative outlook like 4 years ago, it wasn't like I was going to quit, but it's just made the process a lot more enjoyable. But what really drives me to keep continuing is that I'm just not done yet. I think that there's still more left to give. Now, everyone has different goals and everyone has different priorities. Competing means different things to people. But for me, I set a goal a long time ago. I want to compete until I have a performance where I feel like there's nothing left. Like I've reached my lifetime potential, and I kind of have an idea what that is. And I just want to give it my best shot and try to get there, because training is one commitment that I've always stuck to. And my commitment to training has taught me how to be committed in other things in life, relationships, work. So I just want to see this commitment through. That's what really drives me to continue is, I set out when I was a teenager to do this thing, and I want to take it all the way. I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to, get forced out of the sport or anything like that. But I want to give this one thing, everything, my heart, my soul, my everything. And
you'll know it when it happens?
I think I'll know it when it happens. That's what they say. Yeah. That's what they say, And again, everybody has different, I'm not saying that everyone that trains, oh, I have to do this for the rest of my life, or like, oh, I have to do this to reach my maximum human potential. That's not what I'm saying. It's just when you set a goal, the best way to achieve it and the best way to feel happy about it is just to put everything into it, put your heart and soul into it and let it enrich your life. Don't let it be a stressor. Let it be a celebration of your hard work. Don't let it be a drag. Don't let it be too much of a grind,
With this outlook towards lifting, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned through lifting weights and competing in and out of a gym?
I really tie a lot of stuff I've learned in lifting into my career now. It taught me how to be a student. It taught me how to be a rookie. I had to figure a lot of this stuff out for training on my own and through trial and error. And you learn what the process is to be good at something. A lot of that starts with just executing the basics. So when I started the Fire Academy, I felt like, it was something I was not exposed to ever. And it was a lot of information, and it's an intimidating job, and I want to be good at it. But it taught me, okay, what do I need to prioritize to get good at this? I need to prioritize at work, stretching hose lines, throwing ladders, very basic functions, right? I don't get caught up in executing these advanced concepts or trains of thoughts that I'm not familiar with, So it's just taught me how to be a student and learn things from the bottom up. And that's been able to really carry over in my career and just other things in life, just learning general information, how to look at the big picture.
Cool. All right, perfect. Sounds like a good place to end. We've been
absolutely
over an hour now.
Oh, cool. But, nice.
Time flies.
If people want to kind of find out more about you, can they hook up and follow you on social media? And
oh, okay. Yeah, I pretty much do everything on Instagram. My Instagram's at creyes55, CREYES55. I post free training information. I'm not a coach or anything like that. I'm just somebody that's really passionate about strength sports, and I try to share my own experiences to draw commonality between people. So I put up stuff there and rants all the time.
Great rants.
Yeah. I also have another account, First Do Strength Crew. This is the long-term project I'm working on. Later in life, I'd like to work with first responders for like first responder specific training. I mean, even though we're all humans and kind of should be training similarly, I'm trying to just appeal to that market, but I've really been interested in trying to find how fitness and general health and things like aerobic capacity and strength training tie into the fire service. So I post some fire specific stuff there if you're interested.
All right. And I'm Paul Milano. You can find me at Paul_resilient.
And I'm Ryan Kalkowski. You can find me at Ryan_resilient.
All right. Thank you for joining us for the Resilient Training Lab podcast. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about what we do at Resilient Training Lab, you can follow us at Resilient Training Lab on Instagram and Facebook, or check us out at www.resilienttraininglab.com. Thank you, and have a good day.